भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। Brahmaraji, I will repeat what you had started. Kindly let me know. From this verse, 36th.
Not 36th. We were doing the previous one, no? No, you'll have to go back. We thought we'll revise the whole thing. So I think you should start from the japa. Importance of japa.
Practice of here, practice abhyasa of japa also be included. Because the mind's nature is not predictable, what your next thought will be is also not predictable. It can be anything. And since the next thought can be anything, since you cannot predict what it will be, you create a predictable situation. Then only can you understand how the mind moves, etc. In this way, you get to have a certain hold over the mind, over the thinking process itself. This is why the mental repetition of a given mantra, a meaningful name, word, or sentence called japa is a must and is never given up even by a sannyasi. The usefulness of a mantra. A brahmachari has a mantra, a grihastha has a mantra, a vanaprastha has a mantra, and a sannyasi also has a mantra. There is no one who is without a word that is meaningful, either chosen by the person or given to that person. A particular mantra is important because it gives you a certain hold. That is why japa of some sort is common to all traditions. It gives you this particular capacity of knowing exactly what is going to happen next. It is the only situation where the it is very strange. I don't know why the screen goes away. My internet is okay, Brahmaraji, because the message is coming, it is unstable.
So far it is fine, Bela.
Okay. Even when you find yourself dwelling upon a particular object, you do not know what your next thought is. And when you decided to dwell on a given object, to into it, you are very clear about how the inquiry is going to proceed. Whereas here, repetition being what it is, you have a definite occupation. This gives you a handle over the mind so that when it moves away, you understand what is happening, and again you bring it back to the object of meditation. So here I think the importance of mantra jap is mentioned. Here Atma is as though the object of meditation in order to make the mind abide in the Atma. To make the mind Atma Samstha. This abhyasa, this practice is the meditation that is in keeping with the teaching. The repetition itself is called abhyasa. Even in Sanskrit grammar, abhyasa means duplication. Because of this abhyasa, you learn the ways of the mind. You come to have some insight about it. In this particular abhyasa, even the object of distraction becomes an object of meditation, as discussed earlier. Wherever the mind goes, there I turn my attention. Yatra yatra mano yati tatra tatra samadhayah. This turning the attention from one thing to another becomes contemplation, in which the attention moves from the object to the very basis of the object, Atma. Therefore, there is no real distraction. Contemplation is appreciation of a fact. In this way, the distance between the thought and the self becomes very clear. The thought is this. Thought is not everything. Thought is imbued with the self. This becomes very clear. And if I turn my attention towards the self, it becomes contemplation. I appreciate the self as independent of the thought. The more you appreciate this fact, thought becomes purely a role. It is not taken as everything. This is the distance that I come to know. A distance that does not imply physical distance or a particular condition of the mind. It is insight, appreciation itself. And this appreciation becomes the reality. This then is the practice that Krishna says would enable one to master the mind. So you take the mind wherever the thought goes, and there you get the meditation. It is because mind is nothing but yourself. Why the mind wanders? The second means for making the mind abide in itself, mentioned here by Krishna, is vairagya, objectivity. So first is abhyasa and second is vairagya. Why does the mind go here and there in the first place? The mind goes elsewhere purely due to lack of interest. The nature of the mind is to go wherever there is some kick, wherever there is something more interesting. Some interest must be there, and towards that it goes. Thus, without your trying to dwell upon anything in particular, the mind naturally goes towards the objects that it finds more interesting. The mind goes towards an object of love and towards an object of pain also, since pain means that something requires attention. These are the two places towards which the mind goes without any effort on your part. Why? Because one is interesting and the other requires attention. In an object of love, there is a certain joy, a certain pleasantness to which the mind naturally goes. And towards any object that hurts you or has hurt you, the mind also goes quite naturally. One is positive, whereas the other, being something that requires attention, is negative. So in both the cases, Swamiji says, in the case of love also and in case of pain also, the mind goes there and it is very, very natural. Objects of pain can be taken care of by abhyasa, whereas vairagya is with reference to objects of love. By abhyasa, a certain distance can be developed between oneself and the pain, although this may take some time. Vairagya is mentioned here separately because the source of all desires for happiness and security is what we call Shobhana Dhyasa,
Bela,
meaning
check Gurudev. Shall I take over from here? Because there is a little bit of shake in the voice.
yeah, the message is okay.
So it is from here, right? One is positive, whereas the other, being something that requires attention, is negative.
Yes.
Correct? Objects of pain can be taken care of by abhyasa, whereas vairagya is with reference to objects of love. By abhyasa, a certain distance can be developed between oneself and the pain, although this may take some time. Vairagya is mentioned here separately because the source of all desires for happiness and security is what we call Shobhana Dhyasa, meaning that you superimpose certain attributes upon various objects in the world and then think these will bring you happiness and security. That a particular object is going to make me more secure is one such attribute. Or by achieving this or that, I'm going to be different. I'm going to be somebody. I'm going to be acceptable to myself and to others. First to others and thereby to myself. I will read this why the mind wanders one more time. The second means for making the mind abide in itself, mentioned here by Krishna, is vairagya or objectivity. Why does the mind go here and there in the first place? The mind goes elsewhere purely due to lack of interest. The nature of the mind is to go wherever there is some kick, wherever there is something more interesting. Some interest must be there, and towards that it goes. Thus, without your trying to dwell upon anything in particular, the mind naturally goes towards the objects that it finds more interesting. So this paragraph is in a little contrast to what Swamiji was talking about earlier. Yesterday he was talking about how we have no control on what happens in the mind. As in, everything is logical. There is a reason why what thought comes in into the mind. And that is the nature of the mind. The mind is kshanika. And every second, not even every second, moment to moment, it keeps changing. But then it also has this tendency to wander towards something which is interesting. And that is where that role of japa happens. When you develop that value for japa and you do it, it would guide the mind in there, in towards that direction.
No, here also the mind changes, but it goes where it is interested.
Correct.
That is the same thing.
No, that is why, see, of the purusharthas, which is what dharma, artha, kama, moksha, rather than hooking your purushartha towards kama and artha, you shift towards moksha. That is also like yoking the mind, something that is interesting, something that is more, should I say,
more interesting, more interesting.
More valuable. You develop a value for that, isn't
more
it?
Desirable.
Yeah.
More desire. You're hooking your purushartha towards something which is higher. That is why they say detach and attach. Detach from the worldly objects and attach to the higher.
That is what Guruji says, no, think big.
If you don't mind, shall I just read this little part again one more time? I know we're going back, but I thought it is good to, because it's important for all of us to identify this inner child within us. It might be as simple as, um, our nature of maybe finding fault or complaining, that has its roots from the very beginning, from the childhood, and we've not taken care of that. And that becomes a trait and an attribute. And that is what becomes a pratibandhaka for our contemplation, for our progress. So identifying where all in what all situations the child within us comes up and taking care of that child will ultimately lead to our dhyana becoming more meaningful. We can go into deeper levels of meditation, experience deeper levels of meditation. Can I just read this caring for the child within?
Yes, dear. Yes.
By addressing Arjuna here as Kaunteya, meaning the son of Kunti, Krishna is indicating that the child was still there in Arjuna, which is where the mind has its own roots. This child has to be taken care of by the person. Therefore, there is double child care. When you were a child, someone else took care of you, but now you have to take care of your inner child. The first child care is done by one's parents or certain other adults, whereas this child care must be done by the person. Everyone nurses a child inside, and that child has to be taken care of. Everyone has to do it. There is always a child who is disappointed in his or her perceptions. My mother does not like me. My father hates me. These were the child's perceptions, and because of the behavior of the people involved, they have some validity. This is why the child remains inside the person. There is always a crying child, a weeping child down below, which is why the mind suddenly takes off, especially when you reach the age of 35 years or over. This is the time that all the disappointments of the child come out one by one. And if you begin to study Vedanta, they all come out. Studying Vedanta means that you look at yourself. Previously, you were doing other things. Looking at yourself is the first thing that must be done here, which is when the child comes out. When else will this child be taken care of? It has to be taken care of. It has to be addressed. Otherwise, you become 75 years old and are still a child. This then is the point Krishna is making here by calling Arjuna as Kaunteya. First, he refers to Arjuna as an adult, Mahabaho, and then asks him to take care of the child by addressing him as Kaunteya. Krishna then tells Arjuna how this is to be done, saying that by practice and objectivity, the mind can be mastered. Abhyasena vairagyena cha grihyate. And what is this practice, abhyasa? The practice is the practice of yoga, just discussed by Krishna, through which a certain distance is gained between your mind and yourself. This distance enables you to look at yourself positively, to see yourself exactly as you are, to see what the nature of I is. In this way, you come to understand that every thought is you, no doubt, but that you are free from thought. Seeing this particular fact more and more, seeing it inside very clearly, is what is meant by abhyasa, practice. Seeing this particular situation, thought being I, while I is not any thought, is what is called nididhyasana. And doing the same thing again and again is called abhyasa. which enables you to gain mastery over your mind. Abhyasena grihyate.
We did abhyasa right now, right?
We did abhyasa right now. And here he mentions, Swamiji says, Krishna talked about the practice of yoga was discussed before. So can we just recollect what Krishna had said earlier? That is, in the practice of yoga, he talked about samadarshana, and he also talked about, just go to those verses 1 minute. Just
Prashanta manasa. Prashanta manasa.
Prashanta manasam yenam.
Yoga ruda.
Yeah, apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudramapa pravishanti yadvat tadvat ka. So the person who is already complete, he does not need anything to complete himself. He's not a kamakami. Yeah. And with pairs of opposites, he still remains the same. Sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labhau jayaje. And then, yeah, I'm just going back, but I just want to go through those shlokas 1 minute. Just go through the. So this is all the practice of contemplation. This one.
I think the most important is the equanimous, whatever it is.
See, Sureshji, whatever you practice, it will ultimately bring you to the whole. Like how in Ashtanga Yoga, you practice one limb, everything will come. So wherever you start doesn't matter, but that you practice and you do it repetitively, repeatedly.
That is what he says, no?
Yeah.
That is what he says, no? That let whatever.
Sureshji, there's a lot of disturbance. We can't hear you.
That itself is also Atma. That,
we couldn't hear you.
Hold on.
Can't hear you.
No, whatever, wherever. No, can you hear?
Yes, now it's better. Now it's better.
No, whatever you contemplate, suppose you contemplate on any object, that object also is Atma. That is what he says, no, in that. So, appreciating the everything as equal, everything is Atma, and it is in Atma, we are also in Atma, everything is Atma. That's Samadarshana. That is the thing. Yesterday, did you attend the satsang, Guruji's?
No, and then I wanted to attend later, but that was videos. It kept saying videos private, so we couldn't.
Yeah, because he said more about the Rama Janmabhoomi. It was dangerous mostly. Therefore
that's why. Okay.
Therefore, they had to remove it. Immediately, it was removed. But in that, he sees this Kaikeyi also is good girl, this one. Otherwise, whole Ramayana would have not happened.
Yeah, that he mentioned the previous day on 29th.
So means, that also, and yesterday also, again, means whoever it is, whether it is bad person or a good person, they are all part of the Atma only. Samadarshana, seeing Samadarshana in everything, good or bad, take it as it comes. And it is imbued in the Atma, everything. That to get that, it's so wonderful. Samadarshana only is I think the main point, that yoga, complete all the yoga should lead to that. whatever we practice,
So this
should
verse
lead to
said, yeah, Sarva Bhutastham Atmanam, Sarva Bhutani Chatmani, Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha. One whose mind is resolved by this contemplation, who has the vision of sameness everywhere,
everywhere.
self abiding in all beings, and all beings in the self.
So, see, that to get to that point is very, very difficult. You start judging, It's wonderful.
Yeah.
That is the Yogatma. Okay,
Here Krishna says, correct.
whatever earlier shlokas, everything will lead to this Samadarshana. That is the ultimate one.
Shall I read this commentary? Here, Krishna says that the yogi, the meditator, sees the self, Atmanam Ikshate, meaning that he or she knows the self. And what self does this person see? Everyone knows oneself as a person having a history, a biography, which is identical with the physical body and the experiences one has had. This body is connected to some other body, and therefore there is a brother, sister, son, daughter, or someone else. Generally, then, this self that is known is connected to a given physical body as a person who abides in that body. Whereas the yogi being discussed in this verse recognizes himself or herself as the self that abides in all beings. Sarva bhutastam atmanam pashyati. And it is not just that all the beings have their being in himself or herself alone. Sarva bhutani cha atmani. Thus, Atma runs through everything, and at the same time, everything is in Atma. And who is it that sees this? Yoga Yukta Atma, one whose mind is resolved by contemplation, who has achieved success in this contemplation. Such a person is also Sarvatra Samadarshanaha, one who sees the sameness, Sama, that is Atma, in everything. In other words, there is an appreciation, a vision of that which is always the same in all beings. In all beings and everything, there is something without any special attribute, nirvishesha. And there is something peculiar to each, vishesha. We see this nirvishesha and vishesha in different types of golden ornaments, chains, bangles, rings, and so on. In all of them, there is one thing that is nirvishesha, gold, while the particular form such as chain, etc. is vishesha. Although gold is also an attribute, this example illustrates the point being made here. With reference to all these chains, bangles, and rings, there is something common in all of them, something nirvishesha, something that is the truth, satya, of all of them, gold. There are many visheshas, all the various names and forms, nama rupa. The attributes, chain, bangle, ring, etc., have their existence in the satya, gold. Here I'm reminded of the different attributes anything has in the world. It has asti, bhati, priti, nama, and rupa, isn't it? There are 5 attributes to anything. So asti, bhati, priti, nama, rupa. So we get caught up in the nama and rupa. Nama and rupa are fleeting. Whereas the asti, priti is asti, bhati, and priti. Asti is that the satya, the existence itself. So no, when you go on removing the nama, rupa, and go on dividing it further and further and further again. When you keep going deeper and deeper into the actual substance or the cause of the object or the name and form, then you will understand that what remains is just the isness. That's exactly what is this example talking of, that there is some nirvishesha attribute that which is common to all the gold ornaments. Whereas gold, that is the nirvishesha. Vishesha is the different ornaments. You have chains, you have bangles, you have rings, you have earrings. So all that is the vishesha. Again, coming back to Spandakarika is the general vibration and the special vibration. Similarly, yeah.
Brahmaraji, sorry. Brahmaraji, our Chinmaya prayer, Ganesha prayer also, we have this, no? Nirvishesham, Vishesha.
Correct. Ajam nirvikalpam nirakaram ekam niranandamanandam advaita purnam param nirgunam nirvishesham niriham parabrahma rupam ganesham bhajeva.
Nirvishesham.
Yeah.
In most of the prayers or chanting, even in Lalita Sahasranam and all, I think these all words are repeated. So I think
Correct.
as Nanaji was saying that that bhakti which is taking that infinite, avyabhicharini bhakti.
Similarly, all nama rupas have their basis, their truth, their existence, satya in Atma. That is Brahman. And that Atma, Brahman, I am. The one who knows the Nirvishesha, that is free from attributes, the Satya in everything, Sarvatra, that which lends its existence to all names and forms, is called Sarvatra Samadarshana. Wherever the person looks, he or she sees Atma. Yeah, sorry.
You were saying something about Asti and Bhati. I didn't get that. What was that about?
Which one?
You were saying about Asti,
Asti,
Bhati,
Bhati. Yeah. I think in, where was that? I think, I don't know whether it was in Atma Bodh or in Tattva Bodh where we learnt it. Not in Atma Bodh, Tattva Bodh. I think it was, I think in the introduction to Gita, somewhere it was, we came across this thing about the 5 attributes to anything. Everything in creation has 5 aspects to it. Asti, Bhati, Preeti, Nama and Rupa.
Okay.
Nama and Rupa belong to the physical and the gross body. So we normally get caught up in this, in the physical Nama Rupa. We get caught up and we attribute things, we judge, we get judged. We accept, don't accept. We get hurt and humiliated. All that happens in the Nama Rupa. It is like the example of the pot.
Right.
When there are different shapes of pots, different colored pots. So then we say this is a red pot, this is a green pot, this is a big pot or a small pot. But when you go beyond the Nama Rupa, you investigate further, go deeper and find out what is the actual substance. Then what is the substance in and through all the pots is nothing but clay. So then the significance of Nama Rupa becomes, it becomes insignificant. Because what is actually the truth of existence is the clay over there. Similarly, when you talk about Brahman and the Jagat, Brahman and everything else, it is that substratum which is running in and through all of creation. That is Atma, Brahman. Otherwise, all else is just a play and display of this consciousness.
Mm.
Like you are there, Dr. Mara is there, I am there, Bela is there, Sureshji is there, everybody else here. We all are just Nama Rupa. But what is there, which is common to all,
Mhm.
is that isness, that existence, the Satya.
Yeah.
And that is what the yogi recognizes. He recognizes the self in everything. That is why great people are able to see even a culprit, even a terrorist, even a sinner with that aspect. Whereas normal people will look at a person who does a good deed and will say, oh, he's done such a great deed. And a person who sinned, we normally reprimand him or look down upon him. Whereas enlightened beings and people who are in this space of sarvatra samadarshanaha, they're able to see beyond their deeds, beyond everything. They see that
So it's
that
based is free from the attributes that Satya is in everything. So it's Sarvatra,
right.
which lends itself to the existence of all names and forms. That's a Sarvatra Samadarshana. Mm.
Gurudev, and they also see the three gunas which are playing here. Rajoguna is making him do all this.
Mm.
That is Jnani's way of looking at things. Jai Guru.
That is why in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, they say how to take care of your chitta prasada, how to keep your mind pleasant throughout without getting disturbed inside because of behavior of other people. When you interact in the world, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. So the first thing is to be friendly with people who are doing good deeds. And then to have compassion with those who are unhappy. And then it is mudita, be happy and be happy when people are the first one is
We have to join with the happy people, you know.
yeah, you be happy with people who are happy,
Happy,
right? So that you don't get jealous of them.
jealousy.
Otherwise, your jealousy might creep in. And then
Yeah,
you ignore those that are doing unkind acts, not good acts. It might
These
be a
are the
little,
same,
but
same as Sayama points, no? Same.
yeah, same as Sayam. So, I mean, it is a little deviation here, but what I meant was the yogi over there, he sees the difference in everyone, but he still has that, say, he does not look down upon anyone. He just ignores those people who are not doing unkind, who are doing unkind acts. Let's get back to this. Similarly, all Nama Rupas have their basis, their truth, their existence, Satya, in Atma. That is Brahman, and that Atma, Brahman I am. The one who knows the Nirvishesha, that is free from attributes, the Satya in everything, Sarvatra, that which lends its existence to all names and forms, is called Sarvatra Samadarshanaha. Wherever the person looks, he or she sees Brahman. Contemplation is the appreciation of what is being said here. There is no real looking implied here. What is meant is that for this person, there is no ignorance about the self. The vision of the person is that the self is in all beings and all beings are in the self. This vision, the vision of Vedanta described in its entirety in this verse and the next two verses, is what is referred to as the knowledge. In fact, these three verses lend themselves to contemplation because contemplation is primarily the appreciation of what is being said here. The meaning of the word I, 1 second, let me just mute. The meaning of the word I is not exactly as we understand it to be. It is not this physical body, mind, sense complex. When you say, this is my body, my mind, my senses, you become someone who abides in the body, mind, sense complex. For this, you require no special knowledge. In fact, it is very common for people to take themselves in this way. And not only do you take yourself to be someone who abides in the body, mind, sense complex, you also take the body, mind, and senses to be yours, which is why you say, this is my body, my mind, my senses. Similarly, when you say, I am fat, the body itself becomes the I. When you say, I am restless, the mind becomes the I. And when you say, I am tired, the prana becomes the I. This makes it possible for us to have two situations here. Either the physical body itself is Atma, or Atma abides in the body. Both are being negated here. This Atma that you talk about is the Atma that abides in all beings. Sarva bhutastha, not just in one bhuta, in one body. How can I recognize Atma when it is never an object? And how do you appreciate this Sarva bhutastha Atma? Since Atma never becomes an object, you cannot see it like you can see the string that runs through different beads, thereby holding them together. Because you can see both the beads and the string, you can say that the string is Sarva bhutastha. The beads being all the bhutas. The string is not just in one bead, it runs through all the beads. Even if the beads are of different shapes, colors, and value, all of them are run through by one string. Here, both the beads and the string are objects. Both of them are anatma. Although this illustration is used to explain Sarva Bhutastha Atma, like any illustration, it is subject to defect. The defect here is that both the beads and the string are anatma. As an object perceived by you, the string is anatma, and so are the beads. Even if the string is not seen by you, because the beads are strung so closely together, you can infer that the string is there. Thus, the string is an object inferred by you. Whether an object is perceived or inferred, either way, it is an object known by you and is therefore anatma. But here, how does the one who recognizes the Atma in all beings recognize it? I recognize the various beings, but if I recognize in all of them one Atma, Atma becomes an object of recognition. Atma can never be recognized as an object. How then is the statement Sarva Bhutastam Atmanam Ikshate to be understood? Atma is only one, and that is I. There is no other Atma because everything else is Anatma. If we define Atma as one thing referred to as the person I, then everything that is evident to this Atma becomes Anatma. Therefore, is there not some difficulty here? How am I to recognize Atma in all these Anatmas? This problem arises because this Atma that I recognize as myself is not only in my physical body, it is not in any one physical body alone. When you associate it with one body, it becomes ahankara, the I notion. It becomes the jiva, the individual. Then You go one step further and recognize the Jiva as pure Chaitanya, pure consciousness alone. Then everything else in the world, all the beings, all the minds, etc., have their being in that consciousness, which has no particular location. So he's giving us the steps of how to move forward. One is that you recognize yourself as Atma, that is the Ahankara. From there, from this I notion, from the Jiva notion, you recognize the Jiva is pure Chaitanya, pure consciousness. And then everything else that is there in the world, all the beings, all the minds, have their being in that consciousness, which has no particular location. Consciousness, Atma, is not located anywhere. If consciousness had a location, then it would be located only in living beings. In other words, consciousness would be there in one living being and at another place in another living being. Then how would we recognize the one that's present in all these beings? Between two beads, we can see or infer there is string. This is how we know that the string obtains in space also. But if consciousness had a particular location, how could we recognize it? There is no way to recognize consciousness, Atma, except by understanding that it has no location. It is not located anywhere. Location itself is always in terms of spatial inquiry. Spatial is the space, basically. The very concept of location is based upon the various forms that you see abiding in a space context. You see one object existing in one place, place P, another object existing in place P1, and between them there is space. Therefore, you say, this object is located here and that object is located there. The location for two objects not being the same, you ask where particular objects are located or from where a certain person comes, etc. A physical body definitely has a location. It has to be located. Even concepts have their own location. And if you analyze the location of all these, you will find that they exist within the framework of time and space alone. This is so important, no? So location of anything, of any concept, of any body, of any concept, any event, for instance, it is only within the framework of time and space. In this limitation of time and space, all concepts, time and space concepts and objects within time-space concepts exist where that in which they are located is Atma, consciousness, called Sarva Bhutastha Atma, the self or the truth of all beings.
So it not to be located anywhere, but then again it's there. That's when, you were even question yourself whether it's inside me or outside of me.
Correct.
It's just so funny to see.
That is why Swamiji mentioned
but
both
then again,
are negated there.
Yeah, but then again, when you talk about this wakeful state and the, dream state and the thing, it's not, it's neither of these, but then it's there, right? So it's a witness to all of this. So
Correct.
if witness to all of this, where is it? That's what the question is, right?
Everywhere. Sarvatra. It is like Prahlada telling his father, when he asks, where is your Narayana? Show me your Narayana. Prahlada says, where is he? No, father. He's there everywhere. And then he asks him, is he there in this pillar? He says, yes, of course, he's there.
Yeah. So Yeah, that's kind of you really want to put a finger on it, right? Because we always
Right.
we want to appreciate through our senses, but it's not.
It is not. That is true.
Yeah,
Um,
it's so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, just that Sarva Bhutastha Atma. Sarva Bhutastha Atma is like it is there everywhere. Located. Okay. So Sarva, what was that first thing? Sarva? The, that,
Sarva,
can you say the sloka again one more time?
yeah.
Sarva
Sarva,
Bhutanam. Sarva
Sarvabhutastam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha.
Okay, so that this is what the Sarva Bhutastha Atma. That's the one we were talking about right now. Abiding in all beings. Sarva Bhutani is all beings. Okay, that's all. Bhuta means like being. So Sarva Bhutani, all beings. Sarva Bhutastam is abiding in all beings. Okay, so obviously it's there in everyone, but then it's everywhere. Sarvatra everywhere. Okay. So wow.
Yoga
So,
Yuktatma, one whose
yeah,
mind is resolved by this contemplation, Sarvatra, everywhere,
everywhere.
Samadarshanaha, one who has the vision of sameness, Atmanam, the self, Sarvabhutastam, abiding in all beings, Sarvabhutani, all beings, cha, and Atmani, in the self, Ikshate sees, one whose mind is resolved by this contemplation, who has the vision of sameness everywhere, sees the self abiding in all beings and all beings in the self.
It and put it on the refrigerator and read this.
This is the gist of all of Vedanta, really.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, like the knowledge point, like I have this high value points, like when I do this max up, like a medical knowledge thing, they give you high value care and all these things, so it's nice. Sarva Bhutas Tatmanam.
Sarvabhutastam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha. These are some of these verses that we have to get by heart. And in fact, all of Gita is so beautiful. But there are some verses that actually stand out. And this is, I think, one
the
of
other
those.
one we did was Asamshayam. That was also a good one. So 34.
These are the three verses, as Swamiji only said, no? Those three verses are the ultimate.
Yeah, following this one, right? 29, 30, 31. Yeah, you appreciate it more and more when you read it again and again, I think.
Yeah, that repetition. That is abhyasa. No, that is what he's asking us to do, abhyasa.
But then you wonder why we read this again and now we're finding it again.
Yeah, see, you have a little deeper understanding, no? So I think maybe all of us want. Time and space also have their existence in Atma. Why? Because Atma is not located in any one particular place. To understand this is to have an appreciation of Nirvishesha Chaitanya, attribute-free consciousness, which is the Swarupa, the nature of Atma. Nirvishesha Chaitanya is not located in time or space, because time and space are not absolutes existing parallel to Atma. Time and space have their existence in the being that is Chaitanya. Consciousness Chit is the being, the existence Sat. Sat is Chit, Chit is Sat. And in this Sat Chit Atma, all beings have their existence. Consciousness has no particular location in living beings because wherever there is a mind, consciousness is manifest there. And where there is no mind, consciousness is not manifest. There is nothing more to it than that. Therefore, manifest consciousness is seen as though it is a conscious being. A thought, a certain response on the part of a person is manifest, and from this you may say that the person has consciousness. In fact, this is not the way to look at it. The object of such an inference is anatma. Whatever you infer is anatma alone. Should I read this again? Consciousness has no particular location in living beings because wherever there is a mind, consciousness is manifest there, and where there is no mind, consciousness is not manifest. So Swamiji is saying this is not how we look at it. For instance, when you take that example of the sleep, in deep sleep, there is no
One
mind.
question. Yeah, go ahead. My thinking was like the consciousness, like when you say you are conscious, right? You are awake basically and alert, and you're walking and talking and doing that. Is that what is called conscious? Is manifest?
Yeah.
Then non-manifest
Correct.
consciousness?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Conscious being is the person who has the mind. That's what is the whole thing. It's like the Pratipaksha. It's like you're giving the argument and then you're giving the counter argument to that. So he says that is not how you should look at it. In fact, this is not the way to look at it. The object of such an inference is anatma. So whatever you infer is anatma alone. The Chaitanya has no location whatsoever. In Chaitanya, everything is located. If this is understood, then wherever there is a being, the being has its being in the self. The self is the basis, adhishtana for all beings. All beings have their adhishtana, their basis, in the self alone. Therefore, the self runs through any being that you think about, and that being is sustained, vivified by this same self alone. In this way, Atma becomes the adhishtana, the basis for any bhuta. Being limitless, Atma is not bound by time or space. And in this limitless consciousness alone, all beings have their being, their existence. Each one of them has its adhishtana, its basis in Atma, and therefore in I, Aham. Aham, Atma, is not the self of any one being. It is the self that abides in all beings. Sarva Bhutastha Atma.
Can you go back? I mean, I missed that part where you were reading consciousness. That manifest from this, you may say.
My internet is also unstable. Is my voice okay or is it breaking?
You're okay. Yeah, thank you. I probably missed it. There was a call in between.
So here the argument was that consciousness has no particular location in living beings because wherever there is a mind, consciousness is manifest there, and where there is no mind, consciousness is not manifest. There is nothing more to it than that. Therefore, manifest consciousness is seen as though it is a conscious being. A thought, a certain response on the part of the person is manifest, and from this you may say that the person has consciousness. In fact, this is not the way to look at it. The object of such an inference is anatma. Whatever you infer is anatma alone.
So you call the mind as an Atma.
Correct.
Right.
You're saying only if the mind is there, you're saying there is manifest consciousness. So you're trying to attribute a location to consciousness and say, when there is mind, there is consciousness. When there is no mind, there is no consciousness.
That's not true,
It
right?
is not true.
Yeah.
So whether mind or no mind, consciousness is there, like in the three states of existence: waking, deep, and sleep, and deep sleep state. It is there whether your mind is there or not. It is there in the stone, whether the
Oh,
stone.
no, that is what
Yeah.
I was also telling.
That's
Yes.
right.
It's there
The
in
deep sleep,
everything.
the mind is everything is closed, right? Like it's shut, basically. All the senses, mind, body, everything in the deep sleep state.
Yeah.
Above, so it's above that the fourth is connected as Atma, right? I mean, actually, they exclude all three states as an Atma too.
Correct.
Hmm.
But see, like you require a reference in order to see that all of this is happening. That sleep, waking, and deep sleep. There are three different states of consciousness, isn't it?
Right.
In order for us to recognize that we're going through these different states, there has to be a reference which is not changing, which is free from all of this. Otherwise, how will you see?
Yeah, that's a witness to all of these,
Exactly.
all these states, but it's apart from it.
It is apart from it, but these states have their existence in that. Without that, this is not possible.
Yeah,
So
they are not going to exist, right? Yeah.
that is not this, but this has no existence apart from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true.
So therefore, he says Chaitanya has no location whatsoever. In Chaitanya, everything is located. If this is understood, then wherever there is a being, the being has its being in the self. The self is the basis, adhisthana, for all beings. All beings have their adhisthana, their basis in the self alone. Therefore, the self runs through any being that you think about, and that being is sustained, vivified by this same self alone. In this way, Atma becomes the adhisthana, the basis for any bhuta. Chara achara. See, that is why we say that beautiful, all these shlokas have so much of inner meaning. In fact, every shloka points to the ultimate truth. Akhanda mandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam.
Yeah.
Tatpadam darshitam yena. Guru Stotram, right?
Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah.
So vyaptam yena characharam. Vyaptam is something that pervades. Chara achara. Moving, movable, the moving objects and moving beings and non-moving things. So that includes all your so-called non-living things. But consciousness runs through them as well. That is why yogi...
That is Tatpadam. Tatpadam is that Atma.
Tatpadam darshitam yena.
Darshitam yena. Means everywhere.
So, the resolution of all beings into the self by self-knowledge. So the last sentence over there is each one of them has its adhisthana, its basis in Atma, and therefore in I, Aham. Aham, Atma, is not the self of any one being. It is the self that abides in all beings. Sarva bhutastha Atma. Because if you say the self is abiding in me, then that amounts to actually ahankara. Then there is that jiva, you're seeing yourself as separate. So you begin from there, but then you go to the jiva. From there, you look at the self abiding in all beings. Then sarva bhutastha atma, that aspect opens up.
For Sarvabhutastha Atma, they gave that example of beads strung in a thread, but then they both are objects. So we can't take that example as, but then again, you said the thread was connecting it. So like that, it running through all beings. So Sarvabhutastha Atma. That's
So basically, the difference that we have to recognize is Atma and Anatma. Atma, Anatma, Viveka is what we have to develop. What all is Anatma, if you keep aside, what remains is Atma. And that Atma is the substratum of everything. And for this, I think that Shankaracharya's Atma, not Atma Jnana, it is.
No, as Guruji says, no. Sat and Asat.
Yeah.
They are all Atma and Anatma. That which is changing is Anatma.
Shankaracharya's Nirvana Shatakam, it comes to us to differentiate what is Anatma and what is Atma. In those beautiful 6 verses, I think, he gives out all that is Anatma.
Yeah, Nati, Neti, right? All that.
Yeah. Mano buddhya hankara chitta ninaham na cha shrotra jibhe na cha grana netre na cha vyoma bhume na tejo na vayu chidananda rupa shivoham Shivoham Chidanandarupaha Shivoham Shivoham. This is another beautiful verse that we could listen to, like the Brahma Jnana Vali, this one. So it gives us what all is Anatma.
Yeah, yesterday I was listening to all of that. It was really nice.
The resolution of all beings into the self by knowledge. The other statement in this verse, Sarva Bhutani cha Atmani Ikshate, is also important. It means, and the meditator sees all beings in the self. How this is what is meant by resolution. To understand this, let us look at the different types of resolution or dissolution called Laya or Pralaya. One type of Laya is called Nitya Laya, the resolution that takes place daily when you go to sleep. Everything is resolved into yourself. All your projections, your experiences, the world, and all its beings, all of them resolve into yourself alone in sleep. This is called Nitya Laya, daily dissolution. Then there is Mahapralaya, cosmic dissolution, referred to by the expression Srishti Sthiti Pralaya, the creation, sustenance, and dissolution of the world itself. This type of Laya is like deep sleep, but with reference to the total, the cosmos, rather than to a given individual. Nothing is really lost in these 2 types of dissolution, since everything is merely in its unmanifest condition, and when it manifests again, it is just as it was before. When you come back from sleep, you are as you were before, and everything else comes back in the same form also. Similarly, after Mahapralaya, the creation also comes back exactly as it was before and can therefore be considered an extension of the deep sleep condition alone. Because these manifest and unmanifest conditions form a cycle, nothing is really lost. But then here we have different yugas, no? We have Shveta, Satya Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Kali Yuga. How is it that it's coming back to the same exactly as it was before? So what is that? That Swamiji's meaning when he says there's nothing lost? I think we'll read further. From a manifest condition to an unmanifest condition is called pralaya, dissolution or resolution. And from the unmanifest condition to a manifest condition is called srishti, creation. And the continual change that the manifest form undergoes is called sthiti, sustenance, wherein the same manifestation seems to appear, but with certain changes. I think this explains the different yugas. Sthiti is not a stationary condition. It is time-bound and always changing. Everything is always in a state of flux, but still recognizable. I will read this para again. From a manifest condition to an unmanifest condition is called pralaya, dissolution or resolution. And from the unmanifest condition to a manifest condition is called srishti, creation. And the continual change that the manifest form undergoes is called sthiti, sustenance, wherein the same manifestation seems to appear, but with certain changes. Sthiti is not a stationary condition. It is time-bound and always changing.
Yeah.
This is the answer to the why there are different yugas, and they're all
Right.
time-bound and they're always,
Yeah, they all like destroyed and then to the whatever the microscopic level, right, to atoms, and then
right.
the creation starts and everything manifests, and then sthiti is like we are going through changes in our life, like being a child and then growing up and getting older and dying again, so that's the sthiti part, but it's recognizable. Even though constantly changing, that's the same mountain. Yeah, so this is we did this before, like
Yeah, we did this before.
this. Yeah.
We're just repeating it so that we get a hold on this. Even though constantly changing, the same mountain is recognized by you. The same sun, the same moon. Meeting an old friend after 10 years, you recognize the person in spite of the changes that have taken place in each of you. If moment to moment things were to change in such a drastic way that you could not recognize them at all, there would be continuous dissolution, pralaya, and no sthiti at all. Continuous dissolution and continuous creation is meaningless. There is then a recognizable sthiti, sustenance, in spite of the changes taking place. The sun itself is imploding all the time, and thus is not exactly the same sun that you just saw a minute before. It may run out too in the same way. Nothing remains the same. Everything is constantly changing. There is creation, srishti, constant change within itself, sthiti, and dissolution, pralaya. This Srishti Sthiti Pralaya cycle is nothing but the manifestation and unmanifestation of consciousness, Atma. Moksha is also, yeah.
We read Atma is indestructible, right? So it is there even those time of dissolution. According to this, I'm not sure that what
Yeah.
that's
It only goes into the unmanifest state.
it. So
It does not cease to exist.
yeah,
See,
it
it is not,
exists always. Yeah.
yeah, it does not cease to exist. It exists, but in the latent state, in
Unmanifest
the
same.
unmanifest
Yeah.
state.
Yeah, you're right. Mhm.
Moksha is also dissolution. A third type of pralaya is called atyanta pralaya, total dissolution, and is what we call moksha. Atyanta pralaya or moksha does not involve any kind of disappearance. Oh, it's already 6:15 already. You look at the same object and resolve it in the appreciation of its cause. The truth of the object, Satya Vastu. For example, when you see 1,000 pots all born of clay, you resolve all of these objects by appreciating clay as the Satya of every pot. Then there is Maha Atyanta Pralaya. When all names and forms with their various distinct features go into a state of unmanifest condition, it is called either Laya or Pralaya. This means that it is either Nitya Laya or Maha Pralaya. Whereas here, without changing any object, things are as they are, but at the same time, they are envisioned by you as non-separate from the cause, Brahma Atma. This particular vision is unfolded in this verse by the words, Sarva Bhutani cha Atmani Ikshate. Vedanta reveals the cause, Karana, of everything as Satya and the effect, Karya, as Mithya. This particular analysis is therefore called Karana Karya Vada, cause-effect analysis. In fact, there is no real Karana or Karya because one of them becomes Mithya. This means that the status of being a Karana is also incidental. Everything that is here is Satya Brahma alone. Knowing this, you look at the world, the same world, with a different buddhi. You look at it as the Purusha, I, the cause. Therefore, the entire creation is only in terms of subtle and gross bodies, Sukshma Sthula Shariras. These alone are created, whereas Atma, being timeless, is not created. Uncreated Atma is the truth of everything, Satya Vastu, the basis, Adhisthana, of any creation that may be there. Atma is the very basis for the vision implied by the words in this verse. Sarva bhutastam atmanam, sarva bhutani cha atmani ikshate. Here a problem can arise. Wherever there is adhisthana, a confusion is possible between the basis, ashraya, and the based, ashrita. For example, when I say on the rope is a snake or on the gold is a chain, you may think that the snake is actually lying on the rope or the chain is actually sitting on top of the gold. This would mean that the rope and the snake or the gold or that the gold and the chain are two different things, when in fact they are not. This is just a way of describing something wherein there are apparently two objects, but in fact, there is only one. When we talk about the snake on the rope or the chain on the gold, one object is the adhisthana, the basis, and the other is something that is based, dependent on this adhisthana basis. Between Atma, today, if with your permission, I think I will just go ahead and read this one also, this last thing, and then maybe we can do 10-minute Manana. Between Atma and the world, there is no basis-based relationship. Thus, we see that this basis-based relationship generally implies two different things. Here too, the Jagat, the world, all the beings, Sarva Bhutani, are based upon Atma. And this is called Sarva Bhutastha Atma, the Atma that is the Adhisthana for all beings. Even so, this is not a basis-based relationship. Such a division is not there because all the Bhutas are non-separate from Atma, which is why Krishna says here, Sarva Bhutani Atmani Ikshate. The person, the Sarvatra Samadarshi, the one who sees the Sama, Atma in everything, recognizes all beings as non-separate from the Paramatma, just as he or she sees the clay in the pots and the gold in the chains. Seeing all beings, time, space, everything in Atma is called Atyanta Pralaya, a dissolution of the difference between objects and their cause. Atyanta Pralaya is not the dissolution of the world. It is the dissolution of the difference between the world and its Karana, a difference born out of pure Ajnana, ignorance. This division is resolved in the vision that whatever that is here is non-separate from Atma, that is Brahman. We'll close our eyes and then just reflect on all that was heard and understood, and let's come up with our reflections. Jai Gurudev. I would invite everyone to share their takeaways. Sarvabhutastam Atmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha. That is the verse that we just learned.
Yeah, so that Sarvabhutastha Atmanam. So that's the one we talked about, right? All beings, self in all beings. Then Sarva Bhutani Atmani. So that one is okay. Yoga Yuktatma. That's the one we have to start with, right? That oh God.
Yoga Yuktatma is the one who is in this state. In this,
in this state, he sees
yeah,
that all is self in all beings, and then the self in all beings and all beings in self. That's what that is. Sarva Bhutani Atmani is the
all beings in the
beings
self.
in the self, right?
That is the Atyanta Pralaya.
Yeah, it's total dissolution. It's basically it's a the Atma is in seen in all beings.
That is Sarvatra Samadarshanaha or Sarvabhutas Atyantam Atmanam. You see the self in all beings,
Mhm.
all beings in the self.
All beings in the self.
See, in the manifest world,
Beings
in the
self.
waking state,
Mm.
you see everything. You see different world, the different objects, living beings and all. There you see the self in everything. And then in the unmanifest form, where all beings in the self, you're like taking everything into the self. It is like that Mahapralaya, Atyanta
Mm.
Pralaya. Like in
So
deep,
Sarvabhutastha Atma is more like in waking state.
correct, exactly.
And then the Bhutani in Atma is in the Atyanta
Sleep, in
Pralaya.
deep sleep, when we take everything inside, even
Mhm.
all our perceptions, all our experiences, all our thoughts, all of that goes back into its unmanifest form in deep sleep, isn't it?
Mhm.
So it is that dissolution, that Mahapralaya, that is Nitya Pralaya, Nitya Laya, sorry.
Nitya
Nitya Laya
Laya.
is in
Mhm.
sleep, whereas
Mm.
this Atyanta Pralaya
So
is
all the experiences and they dissolve in you. So that's a one Sarva Bhutani Atmani. Mm.
Hari Om. My
Yes.
little mind gets more confused with the too many words. I just picked up one thing, that the apparatus, what all we have got, ears, eyes, and all this, which they are connected with unseen nut bolt. The fruits which are there on the trees, they are also connected with that unseen bolt. So that bolt is we, the one which is connecting everything, although it is not seen.
Unseen what, Bela? I couldn't understand what you said. Unseen?
There is no seen nut and bolt which we cannot see, whether it is uterus holding the baby, or whether it is eyes which is in the body, or which is the same consciousness which is there in the fruits, which is the trees which are holding the fruits or flowers. There is no nut bolt, but still they are connected. So that unseen nut bolt is all of us. I mean, that is the Chaitanya.
Very beautiful perspective. Nice. The unseen thread, unseen string that is stringing all of us, like in the string of beads. In fact, there is one shloka.
यो मां पश्यति सर्वत्र सर्वत्र मयि पश्यति तस्य अहं न प्रणश्यामि स च मे न च प्रणश्यति. This one
That is one. Sutre Maniganaiva. I was wanting to get this shloka. The Krishna himself says, like the string in the beads of in a string of pearls, I am there in and through every being. So it is like that unseen string that is connecting all of us.
Yeah, when we see that oneness, no, that fear is completely gone.
Yeah. There is no Dvaita, no? No
Yes.
Dvaita means there is no fear. So now, I think one takeaway from this is, in your waking state, you look at the self in all beings. And in meditation, when you are going back within yourself, you see all every being in the self. So it is dissolution. It is like manifest and unmanifest. There are two different versions of the Atma. In the manifest, you see the self in everything that is manifest, chara achara. And in the unmanifest state, it is like that atyanta pralaya, where everything just resolves into the self.
So,
Now,
Dr. Brahmara, that sloka is Mata Paradaram Nanyat Kinchita Stiti Dhananjaya. Maya Sarvamidam Protam
Sutre
Sutre Manikana Eva.
Wow. Thank you for getting the whole shloka.
Yeah, that's a 7-7 one. You know, Dhananjaya. Yeah, nothing is above me.
Nothing
that
is there
all-
apart from me, right?
Right. Nothing is Nanyat Kinchitas Siti Jananjaya, right? Matta Parataram. So nothing is above me.
Doesn't this shloka give us so much of consolation and you know how we get caught up with people, events, relationships? It seems
Yeah.
so frivolous. It seems so
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah, he says like how the beats are strung be in a line like that. You all of these beings are strung to him. Yeah, strung in him or to him. Yeah,
But the funny
yeah,
part
strung in
is,
him. That's what this we call Chaitanya, right? I mean,
right.
we're all in this whole Chaitanya.
But the funny part is, we get caught up. Each one of us is a different beat,
Yeah.
so to say. And then we compare, and with comparison comes all the horde of problems.
Yeah.
The child in us starts working up. That as long as you compare, that child which requires care will be there. When you drop comparing, the problem comes with comparing. No, he is good, I'm not so good. When you say someone is knowledgeable, generally we start looking ourselves as less knowledgeable. I may not be giving the right example, but comparing yourself with everything.
Yeah, that is true.
The problem. That is what Duryodhana's main problem was. He was comparing himself all the time with Pandavas, and which is him to where he was.
Yeah, he was having that jealousy and turns into Krodha and whatnot and destroys him.
Yeah, here I want to add one small thing. Unknowingly, we only sow the seeds of comparison in the very small children also. And that becomes a very regular part of our culture or our psyche. And we need to be very careful, especially with small children.
Very
देखो
right.
वो बच्चा वो कर रहा है तुम नहीं कर पा रहे हो या somewhere some continuous that comparison is so much sowed into the consciousness of children. We need to be extremely careful and we need to pass on this message to the youngsters, young parents and young children. Jai Gurudev. This is a very dangerous trend and that it continues in our consciousness throughout our lives and the next life also. Jai Gurudev.
Yes, that inadequacy, you're creating in the children. I am not good enough. So you're right, Madhurij. And also Brahmaraji, this one also, I want to quote here, that Isha Vasya Vidivam Sarvam.
Yeah.
That Upanishad, it's, but at the same time, we can't go and hug a cobra snake because that doesn't know that, this is a beautiful sloka.
While seeing the Vishesha in the world, you should hook yourself to the Nirvishesha. Otherwise, it is not like a yogi will eat mud instead of food. He will also eat food only. He is seeing the Vishesha aspect of everything, but underlying that, he is with that Nirvishesha, he is with that, the recognition of the Nirvishesha throughout.
So Nirvishesha is the Satya, the truth.
Satya is that does not. And Vishesha is special.
Yeah, okay.
A special attribute. This is so very good. I'm glad that we're doing this again. See, we've done this once, but then somewhere, when you do it again, it tends to kind of open up something else, a deeper understanding.
Yeah, like I still feel, I wouldn't say bad, but like what Nana is saying, like when we read something, we should be able to say it, with confidence. So that happens
That will
like
come. That will
it,
come with little.
we have
See,
to
sometimes too-
understand first and then
correct,
imbibe it, and then it will come out, I think, hopefully.
correct.
Hmm.
Taking that forward, I have one suggestion.
Mm.
For bringing that up, Dr. Mara. Maybe
Mhm.
one week we can fix
Mm.
up whichever day that is. Maybe
Yeah.
each of us can bring up one shloka and present it as we understand it. So that way
Yeah.
it will deepen our own knowledge, and it will help everybody else also.
It will. I think it will help. Even this, I remember this one, I presented it, but then now I don't remember what I presented. But then this is like, we went through at least 2-3 times now. Hopefully it will stay in my head.
Hariom, Brahmaraji, one more addition. That is very nice suggestion. From the same chapter, what we are doing, if we take up the shloka, the previous
Yeah.
shloka, which we have already completed,
That will
I
be
think
good.
that will be very nice. That's
That will be good.
wonderful. We can
Yeah.
start from this week itself.
Yeah. Today is what? Today is Friday, no? So let's all maybe every Thursday, I don't know, whichever day you think of, let's come up with a day. Or do you want to do it every day? Just about 5 minutes. 5 minutes,
Yeah,
10 minutes.
that's
No?
a wonderful idea. Yes.
Mm.
That way we can have, we can by heart also, and we can have repetition,
Yeah.
abhyasa also.
Yes, and that will push all of us to go through the shlokas again and again to see that which one is really clicking with me the maximum.
Correct.
So it's a good homework for everyone.
Are you talking about doing it on the 6th chapter? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what Bela suggested. She said we'll do it on the 6th chapter, which makes sense because we're doing this now and the knowledge is kind of fresh in our minds. So, and link to whatever we are going to be reading further.
Sure.
So I was thinking, if we have one particular day, it should not end up like nobody shows up that day. I know I don't want to put in a vikalpa over there, but maybe should we do it every day or one particular day? Maybe every day, one shloka. That's what Nana had mentioned once. He says every day, one of you come up with the understanding of what you've understood from that shloka.
Every day is a wonderful suggestion.
Every day is better, I know. Abhyasa is what we have to do. We have to do repeatedly. So let us stick to every day.
It should be voluntary, whoever is ready.
Correct.
Yeah,
Whoever
and
is
it
ready.
should, like once you finish reading, we can have that shloka and then manana, I think.
So we'll have it in the end of the thing, no? So we'll close at 6 o'clock. So we'll leave half an hour, 5 minutes for the person who has who's come up with the shloka, and then we can do manana.
Very good. 26th chapter or anywhere?
6th chapter.
Okay. All right.
Let's stick to 6th chapter, no? So then we'll be thorough with this at least. So tomorrow, who would like to volunteer so we know beforehand?
I will do it.
Yeah. Everyone can actually start learning and reading. And then as and when there is we can take turns in presenting out. So should we close here today? Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev. Jai Gurudev.
Dhanyavad.